The sun was setting over the fields of New Hounday when they soon noticed something wrong with his storage shed. The door hung slightly open, though he remembered closing it that morning. He stopped walking and listened carefully. The wind moved through the tall grass around his farm, but there was something else. A sound he couldn't quite identify. Dae-Soon lived alone on the edge of the colony. His small farm produced just enough vegetables and grain to feed himself and sell a little extra at the market. He was 38 years old, but looked older. 3 years ago, a terrible sickness had swept through the colony. It took his wife and his 7-year-old son within days of each other. After that, Dae-Soon stopped caring about most things. He worked his fields because he needed to eat. He spoke to his neighbors because he had to. But he felt empty inside, like a house with no one living in it. He approached the shed slowly. The colony had strict rules about aliens. The Galactic Council controlled most of known space, and they had forbidden humans from making contact with other species without permission. Governor Tae-min enforced this law harshly. Anyone caught helping aliens faced prison or worse. But Dae-Soon wasn't thinking about laws as he pushed the shed door open. He was thinking about thieves and whether he needed to grab a tool to defend himself. What he found inside made him freeze completely. 2 figures huddled in the corner behind some old equipment. They were clearly not human. Their skin seemed to shimmer with a pale blue color that shifted slightly in the dim light. They had large eyes that reflected the sunset coming through the door. One was tall and thin, obviously an adult. The other was small, a child perhaps. Both looked terrified. The adult moved in front of the child protectively. She was female, Dae-Soon thought, though he wasn't certain how he knew. Her clothes were torn and dirty. The child behind her was shaking. For a long moment, nobody moved. Dae-Soon's mind raced. He should report this immediately. That was the law. That was the safe thing to do. But he kept looking at the child. She was thin, too thin. Her eyes were huge in her small face. She reminded him of something, someone. His chest hurt suddenly. The adult alien spoke. Her voice was strange, musical, but rough at the same time. The words were broken and hard to understand. Please. No hurt. Child ... sick. Hungry. Please. She had learned some human language somehow. Enough to beg for mercy. Dae-Soon should have left. He should have called the colony security. Instead, he heard himself say, "Stay here. Don't make noise. I'll bring food." He didn't know why he said it. The words just came out. The alien woman's eyes widened. She didn't seem to believe him. Dae-Soon turned and walked quickly back to his house. His hands were shaking as he gathered rice, some vegetables, and a container of water. He found an old blanket in a closet. The whole time, his mind screamed at him that this was dangerous and stupid. He was risking everything for strangers, for aliens. But when he returned to the shed and saw the child's face light up at the sight of food, something cracked inside his chest. Something that had been frozen for 3 years. The woman took the food with trembling hands. She said something in her own language, then tried again in broken human speech. "Thank you. Thank you. We ... We die without help." Dae-Soon set down the blanket and the water. "Eat slowly," he said. "Don't make yourself sick." The child didn't understand his words, but she understood food. She grabbed a piece of bread and bit into it desperately. Her mother said something sharp in their language, probably telling her to slow down. The child tried, but she was clearly starving. "How long have you been here?" Dae-Soon asked. The woman thought about the words. "Many days, maybe. 20 days? We hide. We see you work. You are ... alone. We think maybe. Maybe you help. Or maybe you not see us. We wait. You've been watching me for 20 days? Dae-soon felt strange about that. Exposed. We have no choice. We afraid. Colony have rules. We hear. They send aliens away. To bad places. She wasn't wrong. Dae-soon had heard the stories too. Alien refugees, caught on human worlds, were sent to council detention centers. They called them processing facilities, but everyone knew they were basically prisons. Disease was common there. Food was scarce. Many died waiting for their cases to be reviewed. Where did you come from? He asked. The woman's face changed. Deep sadness filled her eyes. Our world ... gone. War. Council factions fight. Our planet in middle. They destroy everything. We escape in small ship. Crash here. Just us two. Everyone else. She couldn't finish the sentence. She just shook her head. The child was eating more slowly now, savoring each bite. She looked at Dae-soon with those huge eyes. There was something about her expression, something familiar that made his heart ache. What are your names? The question surprised even Dae-soon. Why did he need to know their names? The woman gestured to herself. I am Yura. She touched the child's head gently. This is Hannah, my daughter. Hannah, Dae-soon repeated. It was a name that sounded almost human, almost Korean. I'm Dae-soon. Yura nodded. She tried to repeat his name, stumbling over the sounds a bit. Dae-soon, you. Good man. You save us. I just brought food, he said. But even as he spoke, he knew it was more than that. He had made a choice. He had crossed a line. There was no going back now. He stood up to leave. I'll come back tomorrow. Same time. Don't leave the shed. Don't make any noise. If anyone sees you, we all have problems. Yura nodded quickly. We understand. We silent. Like shadows. Dae-soon walked back to his house as the last light faded from the sky. His mind was full of questions and fears. What had he just done? What would happen if someone found out? Governor Tae-min would show no mercy. The colony was already struggling. Resources were tight. People were suspicious of anything unusual. But as he lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, he kept seeing Hannah's face. The way she had looked at the food. The way she had smiled at him, just a little, after eating. His own son had smiled like that. Before the sickness took him, maybe this was insane. Maybe he would regret it. But for the first time in 3 years, Dae-soon felt something other than emptiness. He felt needed. He felt like maybe his life still had some purpose after all. In the shed, Yura held her daughter close as Hannah finally fell asleep with food in her belly for the first time in days. Tears ran down Yura's face. She whispered in her own language, words of gratitude to whatever powers might be listening. They had found one good soul in this strange place. One man willing to risk everything for 2 desperate refugees. She whispered one more thing, so softly that even Hannah couldn't hear. A secret she carried. A truth that would change everything. But not yet. First, they needed to survive. First, they needed to trust. And perhaps, in time, this man Dae-soon would understand why they were really here. What they were truly running from. And what they carried with them that could shake the entire galaxy. 32 days had passed since Dae-soon found Yura and Hannah in his shed. What started as one impulsive act of kindness had become part of his daily life. Every evening after finishing his work in the fields, he would prepare food and carry it to the shed. Every evening, 2 grateful faces would greet him in the dim light. The routine had changed him. He woke up earlier now, worked harder, because he needed to grow extra food. He no longer ate alone in his empty house and felt the silence crushing him. Instead, He thought about Hana's smile when he brought something special, or the way Yura tried to teach him words in their language. Yura's human speech had improved quickly. She was intelligent and learned fast. Through their conversations, Daesung learned more about the Veleth people. They came from a world with 3 moons and purple oceans. They valued family above all else. They had been a peaceful species, focused on science and art, until the war came. The council factions fight for control, Yura explained one evening. They say they want peace, but they want power. My world has ... had special minerals. Both sides wanted them. We say no. We want to stay neutral. They destroy us anyway. Example for others, maybe. Daesung had brought rice mixed with vegetables and some precious protein cubes from his own rations. Hana was eating slowly now, no longer starving. Her skin had changed from pale blue to a healthier shade with hints of green when she was happy. Her mother had explained that Veleth skin reflected their health and emotions. How did you escape? Daesung asked. It was a question he had wanted to ask for weeks. Yura's skin darkened slightly, showing sadness. I work as scientist, xenobiologist, study life forms. When attack came, I at research station with Hana. We have small emergency ship. I grab Hana and run. We launch before station destroyed. But ship damaged. We fly long time, systems failing. Then crash here. You're a scientist? That explained her quick learning and the intelligent look in her eyes. Was scientist, Yura corrected softly. Now just refugee, running, hiding. Hana finished eating and came to sit near Daesung. She was more comfortable with him now. Sometimes she would touch his hand or show him small things she found in the shed, little rocks or insects. She would say words in her language, and Daesung would repeat them, making her giggle at his terrible pronunciation. Tonight, she held up a small flower she had drawn with a piece of charcoal on old paper. It was surprisingly good for a child's drawing. Beautiful, Daesung said, and Hana's skin shimmered with happy colors. Yura watched them with an expression Daesung couldn't quite read. She likes you very much, she said. She had father before. He died in attack. You remind her of him, I think. Daesung felt his throat tighten. My son was about her age. 7 when he died. The sickness 3 years ago. The plague, Yura said softly. We hear about it. Many colonies affected. Very terrible. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 parents who had lost everything, sharing space in a hidden shed on a frontier world. I should go, Daesung said finally. It's getting late. If I stay too long, someone might notice. That was another thing that had changed. Daesung had become paranoid, constantly aware of his surroundings. The colony security had increased patrols lately. There were rumors of alien sightings in the area. Governor Tae Min had offered rewards for information leading to the capture of illegal aliens. Just yesterday, Daesung's neighbor Sunya had stopped him at the market. She was an old woman who had lived in the colony since its founding. Her son had died in the same plague that took Daesung's family. You seem different lately, she had said, her sharp eyes studying his face. Not so sad. It's good to see. But you're also nervous. Always looking around. What's going on, Daesung? Nothing, he had answered too quickly. Just working hard. Trying to grow more before winter comes. Sunya hadn't looked convinced, but she didn't push. Still, it worried him. If she noticed something different, others might too. As Daesung stood to leave the shed, Hana suddenly grabbed his hand. She said something in her language, then tried in human words. You ... come back? Tomorrow? Yes, he promised. Every day. Good. Then she said something that stopped his heart. Thank you, Father. The last word was barely a whisper, and she looked at her mother nervously after saying it, as if she might get in trouble. But Yura just smiled sadly and nodded. Dae-soon couldn't speak for a moment. Father, such a simple word. Such a heavy word. He squeezed Hana's hand gently and managed to say, "Sleep well, little one." He left quickly, before they could see the tears in his eyes. That night, Dae-soon couldn't sleep at all. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that word, father. He had been a father once. He had loved being a father. Then death had taken that away from him, and he thought he would never feel that connection again. But now there was Hana, an alien child who looked at him with trust and affection, who waited for him each evening, who called him father. And there was Yura, strong, intelligent, brave. A woman who had lost everything but kept fighting to protect her daughter. They had more in common than he would have thought possible between different species. He was breaking the law. He was risking everything. But somehow, he didn't care anymore. These two refugees had given him back something he thought was gone forever. Purpose, connection, a reason to wake up each morning. The next evening, he brought extra food and a small toy he had found in his house. It had belonged to his son, a little carved bird that fit in the palm of the hand. He gave it to Hana, and the joy on her face made every risk worthwhile. Over the following weeks, their bonds grew stronger. Yura taught him more Velith words. She explained their customs and beliefs. She told him stories about her world before the war. Dae-soon found himself sharing memories, too, about his wife, his son, his life before everything fell apart. They were becoming a family. A strange, impossible, illegal family, but a family nonetheless. Then one evening, everything changed. Dae-soon was bringing food to the shed when he noticed fresh footprints in the soil nearby. Human footprints. Someone had been walking around his property. His heart started racing. Had someone discovered his secret? He entered the shed carefully. Yura looked up at him and immediately sensed something wrong. "What is it?" she asked. Someone was here, walking around. I don't know who. Yura's skin went pale with fear. She pulled Hana close. They know? I don't know. Maybe just curious. Maybe nothing. But Dae-soon didn't believe that. That night, he barely slept again. But this time, it was from fear, not emotion. He had been careful, but maybe not careful enough. If security found Yura and Hana, they would be taken away. And Dae-soon would be arrested. But worse than his own fate was the thought of losing them. Of Hana being locked in some terrible detention center. Of never seeing them again. He realized something that night. Something important and terrifying. He loved them. These two aliens had become his family. And he would do anything, risk anything, to keep them safe. The next morning, he began preparing a hiding place in his house. A space in the basement that could be concealed behind a false wall. If the shed was no longer safe, he would have to take an even bigger risk. He would have to bring them into his home. Winter was coming anyway. The shed would be too cold. They needed better shelter. And if someone was already suspicious, then the time for caution had passed. Now came the time for commitment. That evening, he told Yura his plan. She looked frightened, but also grateful. "You risked too much for us," she said. "You're worth the risk," he answered simply. Hana hugged him tightly. Her small arms around his waist felt like the most natural thing in the world. As Dae-soon walked back to his house that night, he didn't know that an even bigger crisis was coming. He didn't know that within days he would face an impossible choice. He didn't know that Hana's life would hang in the balance. But he did know one thing. He had found his family again. And he would fight heaven and earth to keep them safe. The security patrol came on a cold morning when frost covered the fields. Dai-Soon was working near his house when he saw them, 3 officers walking along the edge of his property. His blood turned to ice. He forced himself to keep working, to act normal. The officers stopped and called out to him. "Good morning," the lead officer said. His name was Jin-Ho, and he had always been unpleasant. "We're doing routine checks. Have you seen anything unusual around here? Strange lights? Sounds?" Dae-Soon shook his head, trying to keep his voice steady. "No, nothing. Just me and my fields." Jin-Ho looked around slowly. His eyes lingered on the storage shed. "Mind if we look around? Do you have a reason?" Dae-Soon asked, and immediately regretted it. That sounded defensive. Jin-Ho smiled coldly. "Just being thorough. Governor's orders." There have been reports. Dae-Sung's heart hammered in his chest. He had moved Yura and Hana to his basement 3 days ago. The shed was empty now. But what if they had left something behind? Some trace of their presence? "Go ahead," he said, because refusing would be worse. The officers walked to the shed and opened it. They looked inside for what felt like an eternity. Dae-Soon pretended to work, but his hands were shaking. Finally, they closed the door and walked back. "Nothing there," Jin-Ho said. He sounded almost disappointed. "But keep your eyes open. Report anything strange. There's a reward now. 500 credits. After they left, Dae-Soon had to sit down. His legs wouldn't hold him. That had been too close. Far too close. That evening in the basement, Yura sensed his fear. The hidden space was cramped but warm. He had brought down blankets and supplies. Hana was playing quietly in the corner with her wooden bird. "They came?" Yura asked. Dae-Soon nodded. They searched the shed. Found nothing. But they're looking hard now. Yura's skin shifted to worried colors. "We bring danger to you. Maybe we should leave. Try to hide somewhere else." "No." Dae-Sung's voice was firm. "Winter is coming. You wouldn't survive out there. We just need to be more careful." But 3 days later, everything got worse. Hana started coughing. At first, Yura thought it was just a cold. But by the next morning, the little girl was burning with fever. Her skin had turned a dark, sickly purple color. "What's wrong?" Dae-Soon asked, panic rising in his chest. Yura's hands shook as she examined her daughter. "She's sick. Same sickness from before, when you find us. It come back. I think because of stress, fear, hiding. Her body too weak. What does she need? Medicine?" Yura nodded desperately. "Special medicine. For Velith biology. I have name." She told him a complex chemical name that Dae-Soon couldn't possibly remember. "It exists in your medical center. I see it in their supply records when I hacked their network before. But we cannot get it." Dae-Soon looked at Hana's small, shaking body. Her breathing was labored. "How long does she have?" Yura's voice broke. "Maybe 3 days. Maybe 4. Without medicine, she will die." The words hit Dae-Soon like a physical blow. He had lost his son to sickness. He had held his child's hand as life slipped away. He couldn't do that again. He couldn't watch another child die. "I'll get the medicine," he said. "Impossible," Yura said. "Medical center very secure. Cameras. Guards. You cannot." "I'll find a way." He spent the next day planning. The medical center was in the heart of the colony, a large building that served all the settlers. Security had been increased recently, but Dae-Soon had lived here for years. He knew the routines, the shift changes, the weaknesses in their systems. The center's storage room had a small window that didn't have a sensor. He had noticed it once when delivering supplies. The window was high and narrow, but he could fit through it. The guards changed shifts at midnight. For 15 minutes, the back area would be less watched. It was insane. It was suicidal. But it was Hana's only chance. That night, he told Yura his plan. She tried to argue, tried to tell him it was too dangerous. But she also looked at her dying daughter and knew there was no choice. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for loving us enough to risk everything." They soon left his house at 11:30. He wore dark clothes and moved through the shadows like a ghost. His heart pounded so hard, he thought it might burst. Everything depended on timing and luck. He reached the medical center at 11:50. He waited in the darkness, watching the guards. At exactly midnight, the shift change happened. He saw the old guard leave and the new guard go inside to check the logs. This was his window. He moved quickly to the back of the building. The window was even higher than he remembered. He had to stack some crates to reach it. The window was locked, but he had brought a tool to force it. His hands shook as he worked. The window opened with a soft crack. Dae-sung pulled himself up and through. It was a tight fit. For a terrible moment, he thought he might get stuck. But he squeezed through and dropped into the storage room. It was dark inside. He used a small light to search the shelves. Medical supplies were organized by type, then by chemical name. He found the section for specialized medicines. His hands moved frantically along the labels. There, a name Yura had given him. A small container with 12 doses. He grabbed it and put it in his pocket. That's when he heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Dae-sung froze. The footsteps came closer. Someone was doing rounds. The door handle turned. There was no time to reach the window. Dae-sung dropped behind a large supply crate and held his breath. The door opened. Light flooded the room. A guard entered, holding a flashlight. The guard walked slowly around the room, checking things. His light beam swept across the shelves, across the floor, past the crate where Dae-sung hid. The guard stopped. Had he seen something? Heard something? Dae-sung's heart hammered so loud he was sure the guard could hear it. His whole body was tense, ready to run or fight if discovered. The medicine in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The guard's radio crackled. A voice said, "Status?" "Storage room clear," the guard replied. Checking the other floors. He left. The door closed. Darkness returned. Dae-sung waited 5 full minutes, though it felt like 5 hours. Then he climbed back to the window, squeezed through, and dropped to the ground outside. He replaced the crates, closed the window as best he could, and disappeared into the night. He didn't run. Running would draw attention. But he walked fast, taking back roots and shadows, until he finally reached his house. He was shaking from adrenaline and fear. In the basement, Yura looked up with desperate hope. Dae-sung pulled out the medicine container. Yura grabbed it with trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. She prepared the dose carefully and administered it to Hana. The little girl was barely conscious. Her breathing was shallow and rattling. "How long before it works?" Dae-sung asked. "Maybe 1 hour. Maybe less. We must wait." They waited. Dae-sung had never experienced time moving so slowly. He held Hana's small hand and prayed to any god that might be listening. Yura sat on the other side, singing softly in her language. A mother's lullaby from a world that no longer existed. After 45 minutes, Hana's breathing changed. It became easier, deeper. Her skin color began to shift from dark purple to healthier tones. "It's working," Yura whispered. "Thank all the stars, it's working." By morning, Hana's fever had broken. She was weak but conscious. She looked at Dae-sung and managed a small smile. "Father," she whispered, Daesung couldn't hold back his tears. He had saved her. He had done the impossible and saved her. Yura came to him and took his hands. Her eyes were full of gratitude and something else. Something deeper. "You are truly good man," she said. "You risk your life for us. For child who is not even your species. This is why I must tell you truth now. Why I must explain real reason we come here." Daesung looked at her. "What do you mean?" Yura's expression became serious, almost frightened. "We not just refugees running from war. I not just scientist. I discover terrible secret. Secret about plague that kill your wife and son. Secret about Galactic Council. Everything you think you know is lie." "What are you talking about?" Yura took a deep breath. "The plague that killed your family. The sickness that killed thousands across human colonies. It was not natural. It was weapon. Created by Council. I discover this. I have proof. And that is why they hunt me. That is why we really run. That is whisper that change everything." Daesung stared at her. The words didn't make sense at first. Then slowly, horribly, they began to sink in. His wife. His son, murdered, not by disease, but by the Council. By deliberate genocide. The room seemed to spin. Daesung felt rage building inside him like a storm. But also questions. So many questions. "Tell me everything," he said quietly. "Tell me all of it." And in that basement, as Hana slept peacefully with medicine in her system, Yura began to explain the truth that would change not just Daesung's life, but the fate of all humanity. Yura's voice was steady as she spoke, but her hands trembled. Hana slept peacefully nearby, breathing easily now that the medicine was working. But the words Yura spoke were anything but peaceful. "I work as xenobiologist for Council Research Division," she began. "My specialty was disease and biology interaction between species. I study how different species resist or succumb to illness. It was good work. Important work. Or so I thought." She paused, her skin shifting to darker shades. 2 years ago, I assigned to special project. Very classified. They tell me to study human biology. To find weaknesses. To understand how diseases affect humans differently than other species. Daesung felt cold spreading through his chest. Why would they want to know that? They say it for protection. For understanding. In case of natural outbreak. I believed them at first. I am scientist. I want to help. Yura's voice became bitter. I was fool. What happened? I work on project for many months. We create detailed maps of human immune response. We test different pathogens. All theoretical, they tell me. All just research. But then I notice something strange. The data I produce, it go to military division. Not health division, military. She stood up and began pacing in the small space. I start asking questions. Why military need this data? They tell me not to worry. Just do my job. But I cannot stop wondering. So I do something dangerous. I hack into restricted files. What did you find? Daesung asked, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. Project called Silent Reduction. Council document that explained everything. Humans are problem, they say. Humans expand too fast. Humans too independent. Humans resist Council authority. Council worried that in 100 years, maybe 200, humans become too powerful. Too many. Too strong. Yura's voice shook with anger and grief. So they decide to reduce human population. Not all at once. That would cause war. But slowly, carefully, they create plague. Disease specifically designed to kill humans. To target human biology. They test it on animals first. Then they release it on human colonies. Dae-sung couldn't breathe. The room spun around him. My family. My son. They were murdered. Yes, Yura said softly. And not just your family. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands across many colonies. All part of test. Part of experiment to see how humans respond. How your medical systems work. How your society reacts to crisis. Why? The word came out as a broken whisper. Why tell you this? Why let you know? They don't let me know. I discover by accident. When I find files, I realize I help them. My research, my work, it used to create the plague. I provide the data they need to target human biology. Tears ran down her face. I help kill your family. I help kill thousands. Not knowing, but still guilty. Dae-sung wanted to rage. Wanted to scream. But looking at Yura's tortured face, he understood. She hadn't known. She had been used, manipulated. Just another victim of the council's schemes. What did you do? He asked. I copy everything. All files. All evidence. Put them on data crystals. Then I take Hannah and run. I try to destroy my research, but security stopped me. They know something wrong. They chase us. We barely escape an emergency ship. Why come here? Why this planet? Yura sat down again, exhausted. Because I hear rumors. Whispers among the staff. That human resistance exists. Groups fighting council control. Operating in secret on frontier worlds. I think maybe if I can reach them, if I can give them evidence, maybe humans can fight back. Maybe they can expose council. Maybe I can stop more deaths. Where is this evidence now? In my ship. The one that crashed when we arrive. Ship is in Forbidden Zone, outside colony limits. I afraid to go back. Council probably tracked crash site. Probably watching it. Waiting for me to return. Dae-sung's mind raced. The weight of what he had learned was crushing. The council had murdered his family. Had murdered thousands of humans as part of cold, calculated genocide. And the only proof was sitting in a crashed ship in the Forbidden Zone. We need to get those data crystals, he said. Too dangerous. If council catch us, they kill us all. Destroy evidence. Nothing changes. If we do nothing, they win. They get away with murder. And maybe they do it again. Maybe next plague kills millions instead of thousands. Yura looked at him with something like awe. You would risk this? Even knowing you'd probably die? They took everything from me 3 years ago. My wife, my son, my future. I've just been existing since then, waiting to die. Dae-sung looked at sleeping Hana. But you too gave me back a reason to live. And now I have a reason to fight. I want justice. I want the truth to come out. I want those murderers exposed. We would need help, Yura said slowly. Cannot do alone. I know someone who might help. Someone who lost family in the plague too. The next morning, Dae-sung went to see Sunya. The old woman lived alone in a small house near the market. She was outside tending her garden when he arrived. Dae-sung, she said, surprised. What brings you here so early? I need to talk to you. Inside, it's important. Something in his voice made her put down her tools and lead him into the house. Once inside, Dae-sung told her everything. About finding Yura and Hana. About hiding them for weeks. About the truth behind the plague. Sunya listened in silence. Her face showed no emotion. When Dae-sung finished, she sat still for a long moment. My son, she said finally. He was only 23. Strong, healthy. The plague took him in 4 days. I watched him die. Nothing I could do. I know. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Sunya's eyes were hard as stone. "Tell me what you need me to do." "We need to get to the crash site. Get the evidence. It won't be easy. The Forbidden Zone is patrolled. Council might be watching." "I don't care about easy," Sunya said. "I care about justice." "When do we go?" "Over the next 3 days," they planned. Yura used her technical knowledge to help them understand what they would face. She drew maps of the crash site from memory. She explained Council surveillance systems and how to avoid them. The Forbidden Zone was dangerous for multiple reasons. The terrain was rough. The weather could turn deadly without warning. And Council monitoring drones swept the area regularly, looking for unauthorized activity. "We go at night," Daesung decided. "During the storm season. The drones don't fly well in bad weather. It's riskier for us, but it gives us better chance to avoid detection." Hannah was recovering well now, strong enough to be left with Sunya's granddaughter, a trusted young woman named Mi-sun, who Sunya brought into the secret. The more people who knew, the more dangerous it became. But they had no choice. The night before they planned to leave, Daesung sat with Yura in the basement. Hannah was asleep upstairs, with Mi-sun watching over her. "If something happens to me," Daesung said, "Sunya will take care of you both. I've made arrangements. Papers, supplies, everything you need." "Nothing will happen," Yura said firmly. "We go together. We come back together. You should stay here. Stay with Hannah. This is my fight now." Yura shook her head. "No, it is our fight. Human and Veleth together. Besides, I only one who can read the data crystals, who know what file's most important. You need me." She was right, though Daesung didn't like it. "I never thought I would care for human," Yura said softly. "Council teach us to see humans as inferior, as threat, but you show me truth. You show me that species not matter, that goodness exists everywhere, that courage and love are universal." "You saved me too," Daesung replied. "I was dead inside before you came. Now I have purpose again. I have family again." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Yura reached out and took his hand. Her skin was warm, and where they touched, soft colors swirled. "What are those colors?" Daesung asked. Yura smiled. "In Veleth culture, when skin show these colors, it mean deep affection. It mean bond. It mean family." "Family," Daesung repeated. The word felt right. The next evening, they prepared to leave. Soon Ha had acquired supplies, equipment, anything they might need. She had also acquired weapons, which shocked Daesung. "Where did you get those?" Sunya smiled grimly. "I'm old, not stupid. I've lived through 2 colony wars and a plague. I know how to prepare." They set out at midnight, moving through the darkness beyond the colony borders. The journey to the Forbidden Zone would take several hours on foot. Storm clouds gathered overhead, which was good for avoiding drones, but bad for everything else. As they walked, Daesung thought about what lay ahead. They were 3 people going against the most powerful organization in the galaxy. The odds were impossible. The risks were enormous, but as he looked at Yura walking beside him, determined and brave, and thought of little Hannah sleeping safely back home, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were worth fighting for. Some things were worth dying for. Truth, justice, family. The whisper that Yura had shared had changed everything. Now it was time to make sure the galaxy heard it too. The storm hit when they were halfway to the crash site. Rain came down in sheets so thick that Daesung could barely see 5 meters ahead. Lightning split the sky, turning night into sudden bright day for brief moments. Thunder rolled across the landscape like the anger of gods. "This is good," Yura shouted over the noise. Drones cannot fly in this. Council sensors disrupted by electrical storm. Good for avoiding detection, Dae-Zoom thought, but terrible for survival. They were soaked within minutes. The ground became muddy and treacherous. Sun-Ya, despite her age, kept pace without complaint. The old woman was tougher than she looked. After 3 hours of brutal hiking, they reached the edge of a ravine. Far below, partially buried in mud and rocks, was the wreckage of Yura's ship. It looked like a broken toy that some giant child had thrown away. There, Yura said, pointing. The data crystals are in secure compartment. Center of ship. We must climb down. The descent was nightmare. The rocks were slippery. Visibility was almost zero. Twice, Dae-Zoom nearly lost his footing. Once, Sun-Ya actually fell, sliding several meters before catching herself on a boulder. But they made it down. The ship was worse than it looked from above. The hull was cracked and twisted. Inside, everything was dark and damaged. Yura led them through the wreckage with the confidence of memory. She knew every corner of this ship. Here, she said, stopping at what looked like a destroyed control panel. She worked at it with tools from her pack. After several minutes, a hidden compartment opened. Inside were 3 small crystalline objects, each glowing faintly with inner light. These contain everything. All evidence. All proof of Council genocide. Yura held them carefully, reverently. This is blood of my people, your people, everyone Council has murdered. This is truth. She handed them to Dae-Zoom. They were surprisingly warm to the touch. That's when they heard the sound. Above them, cutting through the storm, came the line of engines. Lights appeared at the top of the ravine. Bright, harsh, searching lights. They found us, Sun-Ya said flatly. Impossible, Yura whispered. Storm should hide us. But the lights were coming closer. Voices echoed down, amplified by technology. This is Council security. You are trespassing in restricted area. Surrender immediately. Dae-Zoom looked around frantically. The ravine was a trap. Only one way out, and the Council was blocking it. There is tunnel, Yura said suddenly. Emergency escape from ship. It leads through rock, comes out half-kilometer away. But it dangerous. Might collapse. Better than surrendering, Dae-Zoom said. They moved quickly back into the ship. Yura led them to what looked like solid wall. She pressed hidden controls, and a section of the wall slid open, revealing a dark tunnel cut through the natural rock. They entered just as Council soldiers began descending into the ravine. Yura sealed the door behind them. The tunnel was barely wide enough for one person. They had to move single file, bent over, feeling their way in complete darkness. Behind them, they heard explosions. The Council was blasting their way into the ship. Move faster. Soon you're urged from the rear. They'll find the tunnel soon. The tunnel seemed to go on forever. The air was stale and thick. Dae-Sung's lungs burned. He kept the data crystals clutched tight in his hand, protected against his chest. These small objects were worth more than gold. They were worth more than life itself. The tunnel suddenly opened into a larger cave. Yura's light showed the way to an exit. They could see night sky beyond, still flashing with lightning. They ran. They emerged on the far side of the ravine, wet and exhausted, but free. For a moment, Dae-Zoom thought they had escaped. Then he heard the sound of engines again. Vehicles were approaching. Lots of them. They surrounded the area, Yura said, despair in her voice. They knew where tunnel goes. They wait for us. 6 vehicles surrounded them, lights blazing. Soldiers poured out, weapons ready. And stepping from the central vehicle was a figure that made Dae-Sung's blood boil. Governor Tae-min. With him was a council officer, a tall being with dark skin and cold eyes. Dae-sung, Taemin said, shaking his head. I'm disappointed. You were always such a quiet, law-abiding citizen. What happened? What happened? Dae-sung's voice shook with rage. You want to know what happened? The council murdered my family. Murdered thousands of us. That's what happened. The council officer smiled coldly. The farmer knows too much. That's unfortunate. You can't hide this forever, Sunya said. The truth will come out. Truth? The officer laughed. Truth is what we say it is. You have something that belongs to us. The data crystals. Give them to us, and perhaps we'll let you die quickly. You were waiting, Yura said suddenly. You let me escape. Let me live. Why? Because refugees who survive sometimes lead us to resistance cells, the officer said simply. We tracked your ship, watched this colony, waited to see who you would contact. But you only found one foolish farmer. Disappointing, really. We expected more. Dae-sung looked at the soldiers surrounding them. At least 20, all armed. Escape was impossible. They were going to die here. The truth would die with them. Unless? Soon, yeah, he said quietly. The transmitter. Do you have it? The old woman's eyes widened. She nodded slightly. The transmitter was small, hidden in Sunya's pack. It was meant to send data to the colony network. Short range, not very powerful. But it might be enough. Dae-sung made a decision. He did the only thing he could do. He ran not away from the soldiers, but toward them. Toward the vehicles. The move was so unexpected that for a moment, everyone froze. Then they reacted. Weapons fired. Dae-sung felt burning pain in his shoulder, his leg. But he kept moving. He reached the nearest vehicle and dove behind it. His hand found a fuel line. He had tools in his pocket, always did. He cut the line. Fuel spilled out. Stop him. Someone shouted. More gunfire. But Dae-sung was already moving again, ignoring the pain. He pulled something from his other pocket. A small device Sunya had given him. An emergency flare. He activated it and threw it at the fuel. The explosion was massive. The vehicle erupted in flames. Soldiers scattered. In the chaos, Sunya acted. She pulled out the transmitter and connected it to the data crystals. Her fingers moved fast, faster than seemed possible for someone her age. She was broadcasting, sending the data to every receiver in range. The council officer realized what was happening. Stop her. Stop the transmission. But Sunya was already done. It's out, she said calmly. The colony network is receiving. They're seeing everything. Every file. Every piece of evidence. You can kill us, but you can't stop the truth now. The officer's face contorted with rage. Kill them all. Yura threw herself between the soldiers and Sunya. Run! She screamed. Everything happened at once. Gunfire. Explosions. Dae-sung, bleeding and barely conscious, pulled something else from his pack. Homemade explosives he had prepared, simple things made from farm chemicals. He threw them at the other vehicles. The explosions caused a chain reaction. More vehicles caught fire. The soldiers were in chaos, some fighting the fires, some trying to advance through smoke and flames. In the confusion, Sunya grabbed Yura and ran. Dae-sung tried to follow, but his legs wouldn't work. He had been shot too many times. He collapsed, the data crystals still clutched in his hand. The council officer approached him, weapon drawn. You stupid human. You've accomplished nothing, haven't I? Dae-sung smiled, despite the pain. The data is already spreading. Colony network is connected to long-range transmitters. By morning, every human world will know the truth. You can't stop it now. The officer's face showed he knew it was true. Then you die for nothing. No, Daesung said. I die for everything. The weapon raised. Daesung closed his eyes, thinking of his wife and son, thinking of Hana calling him father. He had done it. He had kept his promise. The shot never came. Instead, there was shouting. New lights appeared. Colonists were arriving, hundreds of them. They had seen the broadcast. They had seen the truth. And they were angry. The council soldiers were suddenly surrounded by an army of farmers and workers, and families who had lost loved ones to the plague. People who now knew their grief had been caused by murder. Stand down, Governor Tae-min shouted at the colonists. This is council business. This is murder. Someone shouted back. They killed our families. The crowd surged forward. The council soldiers, outnumbered 50-1, retreated to their remaining vehicles. The officer looked at the mob and made a calculation. This fight wasn't worth it. Not here. Not now. Retreat, he ordered. But this isn't over. The vehicles pulled back, leaving the dead and wounded behind. Including Daesung, Yura reached him first. She cradled his head in her lap. You are alive. Thank the stars, you are alive. Did it work? He asked weakly. Yes, the data is spreading across all networks. By morning, every human colony will know what the council did. Sunya appeared, dirty and exhausted, but unhurt. We won, you stubborn fool. We actually won. The colonists surrounded them. Someone brought medical supplies. They worked on Daesung's wounds. He had lost a lot of blood, but he would live. The next days were chaos. The data spread like fire across human space. Every human colony, every human world saw the evidence. The council tried to deny it, tried to claim it was fabricated. But the evidence was too clear, too detailed, too damning. Protests erupted everywhere. Human colonies demanded answers, justice, independence. The council threatened retaliation, but they were facing billions of angry humans now. The genocide they had hidden was exposed for all to see. Daesung recovered slowly. Governor Tae-min was arrested by the colonists and held for trial. Soon, Ya became a hero, her face on broadcasts across human space. But what Daesung cared about most was seeing Hana again. When he was strong enough to return home, he found her waiting with Mi-sun. The little girl ran to him, crying and laughing at the same time. Father, you came back. I promised, didn't I? Daesung held her close, feeling her small arms around his neck. Yura stood nearby, tears on her face. You saved us all. Not just me and Hana, all humans. All future children who will not die to council plague. But Daesung shook his head. We saved each other. That's what family does. 3 months later, they were on a different world. A safe house provided by the human resistance that was now operating openly. The war for independence was beginning, but Daesung wasn't a soldier. He was a farmer and a father. They had a small house with a garden. Hana played outside with other children, both human and alien. Refugees from many species were gathering here, finding safety among humans who had learned that suffering was universal. Yura stood beside Daesung, watching the children play. What do you think will happen? She asked. I don't know. War, probably. The council won't give up easily. But humans won't back down either. Not now that they know the truth. Was it worth it? All the risk? Daesung thought about his wife and son, finally having justice. About Hana, alive and happy. About the truth that was spreading across the galaxy. Yes, he said simply. It was worth everything. Yura took his hand. Her skin swirled with the colors of deep affection, of family, of love. You fed us when we were starving, but you gave us something more valuable than food. You gave us hope. You showed us that one person can change everything. Soon Ya joined them, carrying vegetables from the garden. The old woman had refused to stay behind. Someone has to keep you people out of trouble, she had said. Hannah ran up, breathless from playing. Father, look what I found. She held up a flower, native to this world, purple and beautiful. Dae-soon took it carefully. It's perfect. As they all sat together for dinner that evening, Dae-soon realized something. He had lost his first family to genocide, but from that grief had come something unexpected. A new family, built not from blood but from choice, built from compassion and courage and sacrifice. The human resistance was calling him a hero, but he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a father who had protected his children, like a man who had refused to look away from suffering. Outside, ships were arriving. More refugees. More people looking for safety and hope. The war was coming, but so was something else. Unity, purpose, the understanding that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or technology. It was their refusal to accept injustice. Their stubborn determination to fight for what was right, no matter the cost. One man had fed 2 starving aliens. That simple act of kindness had exposed a genocide and sparked a rebellion. And that, Dae-soon thought, was the most human thing of all.